Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. Welcome to the Art of Badassery podcast. My name is Mahara, and I'm really excited to introduce you to Natalie McCabe, a practical visionary with 30 years of teaching experience and 15 years as a single parent. Natalie has navigated countless parenting challenges on her own and has turned those experiences into her book, Sink or Swim Parenting, where she shares personal stories and practical strategies for raising children. She also founded an after-school program and ran a successful kinder music franchise. Now, Natalie focuses on one-on-one coaching, helping parents navigate co-parenting and divorce. Her story is not just her own, but it's also a survival guide for others. No wonder she's a guest on my show today. Natalie, welcome. So excited to have you.
Thank you, Mahara. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
One of the things I often open my show with is, so how come you're badass?
Well, I realize now that I've been pretty badass throughout my life. I lost my parents at a young age, and that kind of catapulted me into kind of growing up before the rest of my peers and developed an awful lot of resilience in me. So after my marriage split and my children were very young, I was navigating single parenting in my home community, and there was a lot of challenges there. I had no childcare. So I just said, well, maybe I'll create some childcare so my children can be with me every day after school. And so that's how my after school program started. And it's been a lovely, amazing experience. It's still running and 75 families. And, that really helped me navigate some challenges for sure. And I knew nothing about it. It was just kind of this idea like, well, what's into childcare? And so it was a big learning curve, but I guess I went through it in, blissful ignorance, kind of let me just learn the steps along the way about how to become a business owner and accounting and all of the things that go with it. So I'm really glad that I had that resilience to push through and do that. And then as my own children were growing up, I also became so interested in early child brain development and all of the aspects of it and how my children learned. So that kind of grew into kinder music, which is a music and movement program for babies and toddlers. And every activity that we teach in kinder music is based on early child brain development, cognitive, social skills, emotional regulation, all of those things. So that was an amazing gift of joy, joy, joy every weekend. Just my face would hurt at the end of the weekend because so much fun and so much joy. And, all throughout those years, also continued to teach here and there, different contracts and terms. And so that's, an awful lot to navigate as a single mom. It wasn't easy. I made mistakes, not a perfect parent, there is no such thing as a perfect parent, but all of that life experience is now kind of combined into coaching parents because I realized after so many years in the schools that, the kids and I have our relationship, we're working well, but the parents are still at a loss at home. They're struggling. They don't know where to go for the right advice because honestly, there is no right perfect advice where that's going to cookie cutter fit every family. Every child is different. Every parent is different. So I've really embraced and I'm enjoying helping parents one-on-one with coaching.
So good. And as a parent myself, I know how much it's needed because they don't teach us this, right? I didn't learn. I mean, I learned in a way I learned from because I emulated my mother and I've been very fortunate. I have had amazing parents. My father's passed on, my mother's still with us. But before we jump into the challenge of parenting, when you think back on your early life, and I'm sorry for your loss, it's hard, that's a lot to navigate as a young person.
Absolutely.
The resilience that you were forced to develop at an early age, can you share with us an example of how that resilience supported you years later when you were again faced with some challenges. I'm just
Mm,
trying to draw the connection between the childhood experiences and the
yeah.
perhaps young adult or mid-adult experiences.
Well, I realized at a young age that the most important thing in life is your relationships with people. And, when you're taking your last breath, and I was with my parents when they did, so that really put that piece into focus for me. And then I realized that I had some great relationships in my life, but inherently I had to depend on myself, right? It all came down to, and I had to dig down deep and find that strength and resilience in me because no one was going to do it for me, right? So I had to find the tools, find my spirituality, quiet my mind, meditation, just all of those things that encompass self-care to keep going when it got really, really tough, right? When, you're on the bathroom floor and you're crying, like, to that strength of my faith, it brought me back and said, well, let's just keep going here because no one's going to do it for you. And I wanted to build what I could, the best I could for my children, because like you, my parents were amazing. They were wonderful and taught me a lot. And I wanted to give that to my children. So
So good. It's been a recurring theme recently, actually, is this recognition that being a badass, a really big component of being badass is understanding that you have the power to create the life you want. You,
absolutely.
it starts with you. It starts with us. And I know that
Yes,
when we're in the throes of a challenging situation or desperation or despair or just grief, it can sometimes be very hard to see that. But I really love that you highlighted this need to just recognize the relationship I have with myself has to come first. It has to.
absolutely.
Relationships are, that's what, we're here to
Yeah,
create relationships. But when the relationship we have with ourselves is damaged or fragile for whatever reason, because life happens, then that's a great place to start if you want to feel like a badass. So
absolutely.
thank you for sharing that. What made you go into teaching?
I really became interested in teaching at quite a young age, actually. I was 14 and I was taking dance classes, tap, jazz, and ballet. And I was offered to become a student teacher in the classes. And I just loved helping the little ones with their tying their shoes and doing their little plies and their pointing of their toes. So I started that at 14. And so I was ready to go to university at 18 and I was still teaching dance. And I thought, this is the path that it feels good to me. And I had the most amazing training at the university here in my province. Back then, it was a combined Bachelor of Education and undergraduate degree. So my experience in my 4 years of education, I was in the classroom all the time, like so much more practical experience than most education programs have. So that really had me stepping out as very confident in what I was doing as a teacher. And it's been just so rewarding over the years to just see the light bulbs go on and develop these wonderful relationships with these amazing, amazing kids. It's so much fun. Because one thing about kids is, they know when you're being authentic. You can't just walk in and try to pretend you're someone else. It's not going to work, right? And so that's part of the joy of the job is that I get to walk in every day and be who I am, and they understand and know and respect that, and I see them for who they are, and we develop these wonderful relationships and generally have a good time.
Do you think that being with children, because I appreciate and understand what you're saying, that they see the real you, that has allowed you to become even more badass and more comfortable in your authenticity as you year after year after year?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because I see the difference, right? Of when I'm authentic and when I'm being funny and I'm up in the front, and because you have to be an entertainer nowadays in these classrooms with these elementary school kids. It has changed a lot over the last 30 years, but just to see the joy in their faces and to hear them crack jokes, and you get to know each child so well for their personality. The ones you can crack jokes with, and you build them up and you see their strengths, and you really just develop that caring relationship because we spend 5-6 hours a day together. So it's amazing.
What's one thing that you've these children have taught you?
They've taught me so much. they've taught me how to be resilient. They've taught me how to embrace mistakes, and it's kind of reciprocal. I teach them the same thing. That authenticity piece for sure. Just how to love and how to care for others and be gentle with themselves and with others around them. Um, there's so much, you know.
Would you also say then, let me jump in here. Would you also say in your journey, part of your badassery has been your willingness to learn from your kids or to learn from life around you?
Absolutely. That is so important. It's any teacher that says they know everything. Nobody knows everything. Learn so much from these little people. You know, they all have their own unique qualities and strengths and talents. And, you know, I would definitely I would tap into them, especially in the older elementary grades. You know, I had my tech advisor. You know, if I didn't know how to do, Ben, come here, help me with this, right? Because again, full authenticity. Like, I don't know how to do this. You're more techie than me at this. Come help me with this. And, you know, yeah, it's amazing.
All right. So thank you for sharing that, by the way. I agree. When we really see our children and invite them to sort of step up or step into their greatness, magic happens.
Yes. And seeing their greatness, that, you know, is a big piece of it. Each child has their own unique greatness, whether it's being a wonderful friend, whether it is an amazing knowledge of science, or if it is a great way to tell creative stories, or the one that's joking around all the time, always has the quick wit. Every single child on the planet has these amazing, amazing strengths. And that's one thing I want parents to focus on your child's strengths, because every child has them.
So, so good. Speaking of parents and the challenge of parenting, can you categorize some of what you're seeing after years of doing this as being the biggest buckets of opportunity for us as parents when it comes to children, and perhaps include ages that would correspond to that?
So, most of the parents I work with, one of the things that is kind of a common theme is self-care. Not in the way of bubble baths and going to the spa, you know, self-care of asking for help, setting boundaries, taking some time for yourself every single solitary day, whether that's 10 minutes or 15 or an hour. I know it's difficult for parents. They're busy, they're overwhelmed, they have all of these things on their plate, but we do know that taking that time for yourself shows that you believe yourself to be worthy. And I say to parents, is your child going to learn how to treat themselves well and feel themselves worthy if they don't see you doing that? It does make you a better parent just by giving that time to yourself. Then you can go into interactions that may be challenging with more of a sense of peace and calmness that we also want to model for our children. You know, I think for all of the age groups, I mean, I've used some of the same strategies with my toddlers when they were teens. I think kind of the biggest underlying one is that emotional intelligence piece, that emotional regulation piece.
Mhm.
So parents need to look at how they're responding or reacting to situations, and then be very observant of their child when they're having a difficult time and they're unable to regulate their emotions. It's so important for us to be aware of what's happening, kind of look at the bigger picture when those challenging situations are happening, and not just running, oh, they're just trying to get on my nerves. No, they're having a hard time, right? And so are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they need sleep? You know, there's so many myriad of reasons why these things could be happening. And it's really important that we kind of maintain our composure in order to model for them and co-regulate with them. You know, as I've been working through this, and, you know, I'm in groups online and different things, and I'm seeing all these issues, whether it be co-parent communication, or whether it be toddlers tantrums, whether it be too much screen time, that underlying piece is that emotional intelligence piece,
So why do
right?
you think it's taken us so long to understand that? And would you even feel that most of us are at that point of understanding emotional intelligence? I'll be quite frank. Let me just jump in. That's a new term for me, new in the last,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in my late 50s. So why has it taken us so long to recognize the challenge
The
for us?
Well, because it's generational. we have grown up with this is how people are treated, and it's people are just, getting angry and screaming and spanking and, oh, you'll be fine. The new brain science is showing that this is not fine, that this causes changes in the brain and in the nervous system of people, not just children, but children are more deeply affected by it. So, you know, it's difficult to change if you're not even aware, right? So it's the piece of getting that awareness out there about how important this is for children and for parents, and then having those tools out there to that can work for all different families in their unique situation. There's a lot of amazing tools out there, but if a parent doesn't even know that this is a thing, right, they're not going to go look for those tools. So I mean, I guess it's part of something that I want to do as I work with parents and put myself out there more so on social media, is to get that message out there that this is an underlying piece of almost every problem or challenge that parents are having, right?
I remember, my girls are in their early 20s. And when I got into coaching and sort of really began to study interactions and judgment and blame and limiting beliefs and that whole spectrum of introspection, and I was sharing it with my girls, they both said to me, how come we're only just hearing about, how come we didn't study this in school? Like, how?
Mm.
And I'm like, that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think, first of all, is it in school now? Is there any semblance of this level of conversation or teaching or support in our high school or elementary school right now?
I think it's beginning. I think, the higher ups in administration are seeing that social and emotional learning are a really big piece. Unfortunately, the school boards are very data driven, and they want to see numerical evidence of reading levels increasing and math scores increasing, those sort of things. So that there is more of a focus on the academic skills, unfortunately. Because I'm a big believer, and I've seen it throughout my career. If a child is not able to regulate, they're not able to learn anything. You can have the greatest lessons on the face of the planet, but that social and emotional piece is critical. I mean, I used to put mindfulness, instead of meditation, I call it mindfulness in the classroom. I saw a huge difference in these kids over a year of doing meditation and doing, positive affirmations. But when a teacher is responsible for, just for literacy alone for grades 4, 5, and 6 here in my province in Canada, the curriculum document is 600 pages long. And we have 185 days to teach all of those curriculum outcomes. And that's just literacy, you
Okay,
know.
jump in here though. Just let me jump in here. And can you explain, do a deep dive on your comment or your understanding of to regulate? I understand what you mean by that, but for anybody in the audience that may not have heard that term, what do you mean when you say children need to learn to regulate?
So they need to learn how to calm their bodies. They need to learn how to calm their breathing and all of the cells of their body. And the tricky part of this is that every child may do that differently. So that's why the unique strategies, that's why I'm into the coaching, because, you could be given a tip sheet on here's how to help your child relax their mind and relax their body, and it might not work. Some children, in order to regulate, they need to move their muscles and they need to push hard on things, and that helps their nervous system relax. Other children, a quiet, calming space and a coloring book may work. I've worked with children that really had a lot of trouble regulating, and I would put together like a calm down box that they'd have an activity for each one of their senses to help that whole body calm down. So you'd have something to look at, something to squeeze, something to breathe, something to smell, every sense, right? So, it's a trial and error thing, but so what co-regulation means is when they're having this incredible temper tantrum outburst that you're just like, whoa, words aren't going to work. So we take all words out because their prefrontal cortex is not getting any of that information. So in order to co-regulate is just your sense of nearness and maybe a few words of, I see you're having a hard time. Let's just modeling some breathing. There's all kinds of fun breathing techniques. One child I had gave him a juice box in the middle of a tantrum, and that helped him regulate his breathing because he had to drink, right? So, it's trial and error for sure, because every child is unique. But once they're able to do that, that becomes, they're building those neural pathways in their brain, right? Those ones that are calming, and not the ones that are, I'm going to
Mm.
fight or flight, because those, if we let kids continue to be dysregulated and continue to have tantrums, well, they're building neural pathways on that end as well. So then they're going to be more easily reactive, right? And the same goes for adults.
It sounds, and I can sit back here and my kids are grown, but I have to say, if I were a young parent or thinking about having kids now, I'd be scared shitless.
Mm.
What do I have to wait for the tantrum to then introduce opportunities to regulate? Is there something that we can do right from the get-go to create a space or an atmosphere within the home?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that, because
Absolutely.
I think that
Yeah.
maybe the missing piece is understanding that everything we do in our children's lives, right from the minute they're born, maybe even from
It actually does
in the
begin
womb,
in utero. It absolutely begins in utero.
what can we do?
So in utero, mom being calm, mom not being stressed, mom eating the right food, the baby does feel all that stress and energy. So, and of course, after they're born, taking care of all of their needs, building that secure attachment is huge. If people want to read up on attachment theory, I won't go into all of that now, but having that secure attachment, also really important, those routines and those rituals. Young children know and feel safe when they know what is happening next. So having those little bedtime routines and practicing having quiet time and calm time, right? So they understand that this is comfortable. This feels good. Even, I mean, the tantrums are going to happen, but if you start from day one building those times and rituals and routines in there, then it's going to be familiar, and those tantrums aren't going to be, as bad, because they'll have some of those tools, right, to work with. And it doesn't stop, it because they are growing and changing all the time, our little ones. So you may get something that works really good when your little one's 3, and then they turn 5 and they're like, they're throwing a chair or something. It's like, okay, we have to go back and have to observe, okay, what's happening here? What are the environmental things? Is it screen time that is then jumping in, right? Because the screen time, I'm never going to tell a parent to get rid of screen time altogether. Everybody has to do their own thing, and depending on what they value. However, children under the age of 5 need to learn emotional regulation skills and need to learn social skills, and screens, unfortunately, are unable to teach those things. They need human interaction to do that, and to build resiliency, critical thinking, how to solve problems, to build that stamina, because our brain is a muscle, right? To build that stamina of doing challenging things, not, we can't just do everything for our kids, or, that is literally taking away their self-esteem. So as they go through, yeah, go ahead.
This is really interesting because I know that I lived through that parenting phase where we felt we had to do everything and make it easy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that very well, though. But also, we got caught into this idea of they've got to do all of these major activities,
Mm.
kept them away from sort of the family unit, like the close unit of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
eating, making dinner together and sitting down and eating. It was like rush, rush to get to the soccer field, or rush, rush to go to dance.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
can you
I
talk
did it.
about that? Yeah, I did it too. I was so glad when they stopped being interested. I'm like, oh, thank God I could take a break.
Yeah.
Did have a level of guilt because I saw the other parents were still doing all of the stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it goes with your unique child. But I mean, even if they want to be in 3 or 4 activities, you have to look at your whole family and your dynamic. 3 or 4 is too much, that's just taxing. Then there's schoolwork. And again, that family time, I think, is a big piece that people are missing, that doing chores together, that cooking together, cleaning together, looking at your family as a team, like, that we're all here working together and we're making it better for everyone through this. The activities, yep, they're great. They teach lots of great things, but I'll give you a little example. I was teaching about positive affirmations in a grade 3, 4 classroom, and So at the beginning, we did a talking circle where I handed out the stick, let's talk, say one thing good about yourself. And I hadn't taught them anything about affirmations yet. I just wanted to see what they knew. And so I said, just say I am, and then follow up with a word that tells me something positive about you. Well, half of the children passed the stick and had nothing to say.
Oh no, Natalie.
I know, my heart dropped. And then the other ones that did speak, they said, I'm good at soccer. I am good at art. And so these children were looking outside of themselves for their inherent worth. And that is a piece. My jaw was on the floor. I was like, wow, right? How did this happen? They come into the world feeling worthy, right? Their parents love them. I know that, right? But it's a piece of the conversation that's missing, to talk to children about, wow, you're such a kind friend. You're such a, helpful person. Those qualities that we know they have need to be expressed to them so that it becomes part of their inner world and their inner talk when they think about themselves, and they take that time to say, yeah, I am a good person. Yeah, I can overcome challenges really well, or I am funny. Right? We want our kids to have that positive self-talk of worthiness.
It reminds me, years ago, I think Oprah showed a clip of a young father talking to his daughter in the mirror. And and it went viral. And she was saying things, and she must have been honestly like 3 or 4, just learning to, it's like, you're beautiful. You're so pretty. You're so nice. I'm so, like, it was just so adorable.
Yeah.
But it got, I think it went viral because, first of all, it was sweet. It was fun to watch. But then it really struck a chord in, wow, that's important. That is so important. How wonderful that this is happening. That this young dad knew enough to do this. But it also highlighted how perhaps little the rest of the world does it. Because it was such a novelty for us to see it. It's like, wow.
And I really want to jump in here and say to parents, don't feel guilty, please. We feel guilty about everything. So stop that. Don't feel guilty that, oh, I should be doing this. There are no shoulds. Again, going back to, if you're taking care of yourself and you have all these positive things about yourself going through your mind, then it's going to naturally go over to your child, and have those fun conversations, those fun affirmations, letting them know, who they are. It's never too late to start. Our brains are constantly changing and malleable. You've heard of neuroplasticity. So, I don't want any parent listening to think, oh man, I should be doing this, or I should have done that, or beating themselves up. Please don't do that. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. You love your kid. You're doing the best you can, and learning more information just shows that you are a good parent, that you're interested.
I want to highlight what you just said, which is, it's never too late. And I totally agree with you. It is never too late to recognize an opportunity. And, if the minute you say to yourself, damn, I should have done this differently, just take a deep breath and go, wait a second, I could do it differently. What could I do differently?
Yeah.
Right? Just change the narrative a little bit, change the story. That's the coach in me coming out.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it is easy to succumb to the guilt and go, well, it's too late now. They're already 15. They already hate me, or they already acting out so much. I don't know what to do. I just have to, the best I can do is just step away and cross my fingers. But what I'm hearing from you is, it's not too late to intervene and show how much you care.
No, absolutely. It never is. I mean, especially, with the teen years, it's less about control and it's more about connection. Really diving in, connecting with them. I mean, I don't know if I've met a student at any age that wouldn't sit down raptly listening to me tell a story about myself. Something that happened in my world, in my life when I was young. They're all ears. And that's just one of the myriad of ways you can build connection with your teen, right? No, you don't have to tell them all the crazy stuff you did when you were a teenager. Right? Right. But, and connecting with them over what they're interested in. If it's a video game, or it's a book they're reading, or their friends, their sports, just being interested in building that connection. Because obviously when they get to the teenage years, you want them to have that intrinsic motivation to kind of do things themselves. Now we have to keep in mind their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed yet. So sometimes they need help, but there's 3 components in building that intrinsic motivation. One of them is autonomy. They have to be seen to be having some control. And do you see how this goes with the toddlers too?
Oh, yeah.
Right? We always give our toddlers choices, right? So, I mean, some of these strategies will work for all the years of parenting. The second piece of intrinsic motivation is that feeling of competence that I am able to do this. And the third component is that loving relationship piece that they know that they're accepted and seen and understood for who they are and what their strengths are, right? So, it's never too late. It's never too late.
So, so good. And I'll be honest, it sounds easy to say. I
It's
recall,
hard as hell.
it's hard as hell.
It's hard as hell. Yes, it
I
is.
think parenting is the hardest job in the world, and we have the
Absolutely. No question. No question, because it's all encompassing. It's 365. You're worried about food that's going into their mouths. You're worried about their relationships at school, their behavior, their academics. I mean, it's absolutely overwhelming. It it feels impossible sometimes to juggle all of those things. And so one of the things I do in my coaching is I help parents, let's prioritize, right? What are the most important things? What are the things you value? And I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this with your coaching as well. Once we make a change in one of those cogs, really, and shine it up really, really well, families are living systems. It will affect positively other aspects of the family, and those small gains will build to come to a transformation of some sort, right? So, it's about being compassionate and gentle with yourself and knowing that this is the hardest job in the world and you're just doing the best you can. And depending on the parent's value and what is most important to them, that's why, I think the coaching is so valuable because it's unique and tailored for that family, right?
so, so powerful. I know when I was growing up, the things that I loved most were when I got to sit on either my mom or my dad's lap as a very little girl, and
Mm-hmm.
they would look right in my eyes. And I remember I just felt, I'm sure I couldn't have described it as a young person, but now through adult eyes, I think I felt safe and I felt seen.
Mm,
I just felt so loved that daddy was looking right at me and talking to me, like to
yes.
me, right? I'm one of four, I'm the youngest of four.
Mm-hmm.
No, I did make an effort with my children that they always be seen. How do people make it with only one income? How are families putting decent food on the table in COVID when
Mm-hmm.
half the world isn't working? Like, how are we making so? Okay, guys, it's tough to be a parent no matter where you are in the world, but there are some things that we can do as parents to enrich the lives of our children. And Natalie has got some great tips. Talk about, if you wouldn't mind, your books that you've written.
Okay, so there's just one out right now. Well, it's not even out. It's still at the editors,
Okay.
to be published probably early 2025. It's called Sink or Swim Parenting. Go from surviving to thriving, from toddlers to teens. And basically, it's like a teaching memoir where I share my personal stories of struggle and triumph and guilt and shame and what I did well and what I didn't. And it's filled with each chapter with, just some really simple practical tips that can help parents along their journey. So I wanted to highlight, the things that emotional intelligence piece, the brain science behind it, routines and rituals, social skills, food, technology, self-care, all of those pieces that parents are struggling with, kind of like the one-stop shop. I wanted to make it an easy read. I don't use a lot of jargon, teachery jargon. Like parents, they barely have time to read a book. So, I said I wanted this to be just really simple with some reflective exercises at the end of each chapter, just to help parents, build their confidence in what they're doing in their parenting.
So, so good. Now I want to just dive into this a side piece here on how it felt for you, badass teacher that you are, to make the decision to write a book, because that's a big deal. Can we just talk
Well,
about that it's for you?
absolutely. So that started though when my children were in babies. So when I left my ex, they were 18 months and 3 years old, and we spent a whole lot of time together alone. And as an educator and always wanting to learn, I would like almost study them. just like I was the scientist with the notepad watching them, saying, okay, how did they learn this? How, what's going through their mind right now? How are they processing that? Like, it was just so interesting to me. So that's when I started researching about early child brain development. And so that's when my original notes were taken for this book. And it has just taken me, we're working and running businesses and just not, having the time to sit down and actually focus. Now my children are 18 and 20. So over the last year or two, I've had the time now to sit down and I actually took out that original brainstorm and, that's kind of, and I just started writing.
So I got to ask, when you started taking those notes 12 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago, was it because you knew you'd write a book at some point, or was it just the educator in you that was just so fascinated?
It was a definite combination. I felt then that this is important information that I want to get out there to the world. I knew then that, yeah, this is going to come out in some way, shape, or form somehow because it's so important and it's so interesting and it's not mainstream knowledge. People, like you say, even about the emotional intelligence is relatively new. So, I knew and I saw, the importance of it as I taught in the classroom over the years and just seeing, kids that had certain skills and kids that didn't. Keep always thinking to myself, oh, if this child had these skills, I could, see more of this beautiful, bright, wonderful, calm individual than I'm seeing right now. Right.
Another component of being a badass, folks, is listening to that voice that says
Mm.
something is important to you. And totally badass to hang on to it for all these years and just know. So I
Yeah, I
really
never threw it out.
I really want to call that out and for all of us, if there is something that really fills your cup, pay attention to it. Because that
Mm,
could be the reason you're here. That could be the reason you're here, whether it's to share the knowledge or to just develop the knowledge. We are all
absolutely.
here for a reason. And we all, as you mentioned earlier, every child, every person born has a gift to the world. And if and how they choose to show it is, very unique. But totally badass to see it, recognize it, and file it away, and then be aware of the right time to act on it. Okay, so you've decided to put everything together. And how long did it take you to actually write the book, if I may ask?
Um, I would say not long, but not that long. It was over the course of 2 years. But what I found I needed to do was do this like writer's retreat thing for myself. Like I went and rented an Airbnb in the woods in the summertime, totally by myself, no Wi-Fi, just that was my job to just sit and write. And then I did that again in the middle of the winter in a snowstorm, rented a cabin that had a fireplace, and I lit the candles and put the music on. And boy, I think I knocked off 5 chapters that week.
That's badass.
Right? Like that's what worked for me. In the interim though, I did get into a practice of in the morning just sitting down and just writing for 30 minutes with nothing about the outcome or that this is going to be anything, just writing, just kind of verbal diarrheaing on the page. Some of those things made it into the book, others didn't. Right. It was with no expectation. It just got the brain flow happening. So yeah.
So good. Well, can't wait to see the book when it comes out. Will there be an audio version? Because as you
Of
said,
course.
that's right.
Yes,
I'm all
I
about
definite audio version, and I'm going to narrate it myself because I've listened to some of these books that are being narrated by AI, and I'm like, oh no, no, we're not doing that. We're going to have my voice
I didn't
narrating the book.
I didn't know books were being narrated by AI.
Some of them are, yep, I could tell, and they can even take the original author's voice if they do enough voice samples, right? And then AI will then narrate the book. But I could tell the difference in some of them that I read. Yeah.
The one I that seems a bit soulless for me. I
Yeah.
really believe in energy, and there's energy in my words, there's energy in your words, and we bring a certain energy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
AI is not going to be able to tell my stories as well as me,
Right.
especially the funny ones.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your business. How can people reach out to you? Of course, I'll have stuff in the notes, the show
Yeah,
notes.
for sure.
Just a little bit about your one-on-one practice, what that looks like, and how people can, of course, reach out to you with questions.
Yeah, for sure. So I always like to start by talking about what parent coaching is and what it's not.
Okay.
Everybody knows what a life coach is. Everybody knows what a business coach is. But I find when some people hear parent coach, they think, oh, super nanny, she's going to come to my house and tell me what to do. That's not what we do. That's not what we do. We're based on the parents' strengths, each unique family's challenges, each unique family's values, the temperaments of the children. Every situation is so super unique. So there is no cookie cutter approach. And I do not tell you what to do. Do I have a lot of strategies, tips, tricks? Absolutely. But I don't offer those until I first build on the parents' strengths, know their values, and we go kind of through a process of what's most important to them and work on that goal. And then when I do offer strategies, it's by invitation only. Only the parent knows if this is going to work for them in their current situation or not. So it's a co-creative situation where we're both working together to come up with solutions for whatever issues that are happening. So it's not coercive. It's not me saying, well, you have to do this and you have to have bedtime at this. And no, every family's different. It's not my place to say you should be putting your child to bed at this time or you should do this. There's no shoulds. Let's work on your individual problem and let me offer, some solutions and invite you to try them. And the transformation happens over those little steps, right? Those little steps, the cog in the wheel, the whole family system starts to see changes. And it's so much fun. I really enjoy the coaching.
So good.
So people can find me at my website is just nataliemccabe.com.
Okay.
I'm on Instagram, Natalie McCabe Official, and I have a Facebook personal page, Natalie McCabe, and a business page, Natalie McCabe Parent Coaching. And over the next year, I'll be moving into doing some group coaching, and I'll be offering workshops for parents on resilience and growth mindset and anger transformation. So there's a lot of things happening, and I just want to build and help and give the value that parents need.
Natalie, it's so needed in our world today, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you on behalf of all of the kids that you've already touched and helped parents, and for the future families that would be supported and helped by your coaching and all of your wisdom. I know how tough it is to be a parent. I know
Me too.
that it never stops. I remember when my kids were young, I remember thinking, I just need to get them through school. I just need to get them through, grade school. And then it was, I just need to get them through, or I need to get through their high school. And then okay, they're on their own now. They're in university, or they don't even live in the house. Whoopee. And people never goes away.
No.
The need to help and support and the drama. You think life is always, dramatic for you. It's doubly so, I think, for our children because of the world we live in today. So
absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us and your wisdom, and of course, your incredible badassery. And again, thank you for your dedication to children and parents so that we can create a happier place. Right.
Thank you, Mahara. Well, it's fun, so it's easy. It doesn't feel like work. That's what I like about it.
Part of being badass is doing what you love, right?
Yes.
What you love.
So, I just wanted to add, because we were talking about that earlier, about following your passion. I want that for all of our children too. All of our children are badass. And if given the opportunity to follow their passion, and I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving, whatever it is, let them, explore that, give them some time for that passion, because our world needs all our little badass kids too.
Good call out. This has been the Art of Badassery. My name is Mahara Wayman. I'll see you next week. Have a fantastic week, everyone. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to another badass episode. Your support means the world to me. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like, share, and rate the episode on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback keeps the badassery flowing. And hey, if you're ready to unleash your inner badass and conquer whatever life throws your way, why not book a complimentary badass breakthrough session? Just click the link in the show notes to schedule your session, and let's kick some serious butt together. Until next time, stay fearless, stay fabulous, and of course, stay badass. This is Mahara signing off.